Hello, hello, wonderful people. Welcome back to another episode of the Chris McPherson Show. We are here with your weekly dose of all your sporting landscape. We're going to have a great chat today about some basketball. We're going to get into some other sports as well around the boxing, the UFC, plenty more. And we've got some special guests coming up from the Australian Ice Hockey League from the Newcastle Northstars. So really looking forward to having a chat with Taj Lowrey and Riley Klugermann shortly. But as we do each week, we normally try and kick this off with Around the Grounds, and that's where we head. We'll head there in a moment. But, of course, if you want to stay up to date with us during the week, stay tuned to our social media channels at The Chris Mack Show. You can find us on X, on Facebook, on Instagram, and on TikTok. And if you aren't already, you can subscribe to us on YouTube and on Spotify to get all of your episodes dropping to you and keep up to date. If you want to stay up to date when they're dropping, make sure you hit the bell notification on both of those, and that will bring you everything. Well, it's now time to head around the grounds, and this week to do the heavy lifting alongside me is none other than the Third Man Up podcast, Brodie Burrows. He's back. Brods, good to see you again.
Thanks for having me, Chris. Look forward to jumping into the wide world of sports.
Oh, it's certainly a very wide world that we're going to be covering off. We're going to get to the US, we're going to head to Asia, we're going to head to North Melbourne and Carlton. There's lots to talk about. Let's start with the LA Olympics have announced in the last week or so that they're going to throw everything on its head. The Olympics have always been swimming first, athletics second, but because they're using the SoFi Stadium in California for the swimming and the opening ceremony, in times of having to flip it, the time is going to be required in between, so the swimming will be in the second week. What does this mean for the Olympics? Does it make a significant change?
I don't know, does it? It might not now, but it could down the line, and we'll touch on that a little bit later. But look, it's something that, I don't mind it. Don't see, too much difference. There's going to be always going to be the traditionalists that are completely against it, but really it's not going to make too much difference in the long run. It's just those athletes who probably do hold themselves out. Swimming's a different one. I think it's probably a lot easier for them to manage. They can get their swims in earlier. It's not so much those long distance runs where you got to keep yourself fit over that, that week or 2 weeks as well. But look, for me, I don't think it's going to make too much difference, but it'll be interesting to see how it works with future Olympics as well.
Yeah, it certainly will. I think on a future Olympics point, it's always the swimmers that get to have fun in the second week. So we know what the Athletes Village is famed for, and that's a bit of fun, frivolity, and maybe fornicating. And maybe this will mean some future athletes, maybe if you're an athletics team and you are a bit of a minnow nation, just, do a bit of sussing out beforehand of who the single, male or female athletes, the opposite gender are, so that you can go and maybe set yourselves for maybe the 2048 Olympics.
Exactly right. And this is where it's a big chance for those little nations just to catch up down the line, isn't it? Let's put out, just find the biggest stud from the US sports team and mix it up with, a Cook Islands, and see if we can rebuild the Cook Islands athletics team in 18 years' time.
Yeah, well, we'll wait and see what comes of that. It's either an opportunity or just a very, very dangerous mixing. But I think that's what LA should now change. They've all got their slogans about it, what they do with each of the Olympics. They've got slogans, they've got mascots. Fun, frivolity, and fornication. What's more to love about the Olympics than that? If that doesn't sum up, instead of, what was it, swifter, higher, faster, let's mix it up a bit.
You're going to get more people wanting to put their hand up and go to the Olympics with that, aren't you? If you start selling that out, 2 years away from the Olympics, I think we're going to see world records broken at the trials.
Yeah, I'm a bit concerned about what world records they're breaking, though. It might be, what's the name, Bonnie Blue or something? Anyway, dear oh dear. Let's move along to someone else who is absolutely making some waves. He was the man of the match in the Big Bash final. He's the man of the match across the man of the series, across the Major League Cricket recently. Hobart Hurricanes star Mitch Owens has absolutely come out blasting, getting a half century on debut, and has set the Aussies up as we record, leading a day into after the second game of that T20 series, so a 2-0 lead, and he's looking every bit the finisher that we used to have with the Big Show, but he's outshone.
It's great to see because let's look at him 2 years ago. Mitch Owen, no one knew who he was, and it just goes to show you get a chance in these domestic competitions. You do a good job. Let's not forget Nathan Lyon was a groundskeeper at Adelaide, got plucked out to play some 2020 cricket. 15 years later, he's lost his hair, but still doing a great job. And it's the domestic competition, especially the Big Bash. I think it's you go back and it's unearthed some genuine stars and long-term 2020 one-day international players for Australia. And I think it's great. And look, you can really see the way Mitch Owen plays. He's going to be in this side for a long time. And I thoroughly enjoy watching him, and fingers crossed it's a start of a long career in the green and gold for him.
Yeah, well, it's certainly going to be interesting to see how it goes. Speaking of players putting their hand up for Aussie honours as well, the Aussie A game, a man that I know you're a fan of, Jake Weatherald and Jason Sanger, both getting tons. Jake surely knocking down the door after what we've seen in the West Indies.
He absolutely is. And let's not forget, 2 years ago, he just about had enough of cricket as well, and moved back down to Tasmania, took a bit of a break for his mental health, and he's come back refreshed, and you can just tell he's enjoying his cricket again. And you love to see it. And for him to go back down to Tasmania, and also a state that's not known for big scores from their batters too, go down there and play on some of the toughest pitches in some tricky conditions. So I think it's been great for his cricket moving down there, and I'd love to see Jakey Weatherald just get given a shot. Unfortunately, there's not a lot of tests between now and the Ashes, but it'd be the perfect opportunity now to put him up there and see what he could do. He's just absolutely banging the door down, and great to see Jason Sanger as well revitalise his career last year and just keeps producing. So I think we've now got two batters waiting in the wings who we can trust to bring in, knowing they've just got a bulk of runs behind them.
Yeah, they're both a little bit versatile as well. It'll be interesting to see because, as you say, I don't think there's any test before the Ashes. There's obviously the white ball cricket coming up, and to looking at the scores from that game, I think it's probably fair to say, without taking anything away from them, that it was a reasonably easy batting surface. So maybe seeing how the two of them go touring to India with the Australia A versus India A series might be a good measuring stick, and then a bit of Sheffield Shield. But hopefully they can continue on what they've done for the last 12 months because, one of them's mid-20s, the other one's 30, but 30 still means he could have a good 7 or 8 years, as Usman Khawaja has shown he's now starting to go on the other side, but could be a nice straight slot and swap. We'll wait and see. While we're talking about Aussies, who might be a little bit further down their career than people sometimes realise, Ben Simmons. He's apparently still an NBA player, I'm told. There's 4 teams chasing him. I am a little bit confused and amused as to the fact that teams are still prepared to take a chance on a guy who's clearly been a little bit troubled both with injury and with some of his interpersonal skills.
Yeah, it's a tricky one when it comes to Ben Simmons, isn't it? Because when he is fit and firing, he's a defensive beast out there. And we've seen so often it's the best defensive teams that are actually going really far in the NBA this year. I mean, look at OKC. Other than SGA, there's no real stars, but as a collective and as a team, they were just so brilliant from start to finish throughout the year. And look, it's one of those ones, but it's similar. I mean, we'll be able to talk footy in a minute, but it's North Melbourne are Ben Simmons. Yep. Once he gets right, it's going to be great. But we've been saying that for the last 6 years, Chris, about Ben Simmons is once he gets right, once he gets his head right, once he gets his body right, things will start happening. It's honestly, he's lucky to still be in the NBA. If it was anyone else and not a top 10 pick, he'd be probably barely playing G League. He'd be back here in Australia trying to earn a quid. And look, we want to see him do well, but everyone's just run out of patience, unfortunately, with him. And times like this, players either go the other way and they learn from their mistakes and they come out and shock everyone, or they just drift off into obscurity. And look, who knows what's going to happen, but it's definitely a fork in the road for Ben right now.
Yeah, I think so. I think the clubs he's rumoured to be talking to, Boston, which surprised me a little bit, Phoenix, the Knicks and Sacramento. I think to your point, though, if he doesn't get things sorted really quickly, he's going to find himself maybe playing for Melbourne United or Cairns Taipans in about 12 to 18 months' time.
Yeah, exactly right, which honestly would be great for the league. I mean, and it could be great for Ben to come back. And we're seeing now more than ever that NBL is actually being a decent feeder back into the NBA. Players coming over here, doing really well, and then getting a chance in the NBA and going from there. So, look, maybe that could be what he needs, is come back, a bit of a kick in the ass and see where he goes from there.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to see, I mean, it's not even that he's not the big fish in the small pond over there. He's the big fish in a big pond. He's still got a lot of rap on him. So wait and see how he goes. The thing that does give you an eye hope, though, Broads, for our future athletic careers is that Chris Paul signed another 1-year deal back at the Clippers at 40 years of age.
Yeah, Chris Paul. It is. I actually like him going back to the Clippers. And Chris Paul, one thing, he is such a smart basketballer as well. The way he runs offense, and he doesn't have the scoring capabilities that he would have had 5 or 6 years ago. But he's so smart with the ball, and he can still set you up from especially from an offense point of view. Lacks a little bit on defense compared to that 4 or 5 years ago when he's obviously lost his speed, but he's a great person to have around your franchise one way or another. So I don't think the Clippers lose anything at all by having Chris Paul back on your list.
Yeah, I agree. I think he's going to be a good asset, and obviously it's an environment that he knows. He's back there, and hopefully he can be a key piece as they look to build again. Before we wrap up basketball, Broads, the Opals have finally managed to win the Asian Cup on overseas soil after not making it to the final here in Australia last time around. Over in China, they beat Japan in the pool games to set up a nice semi-final draw for them where they ran Korea off the court, and then they've knocked over Japan for a second time in the tournament to win gold and knock over the six-time champions in Japan and break that title drought, which is great to see the girls get the gold.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's probably been, it tends to come and go, the interest in the Opals, doesn't it? Peaks around Olympics, and then unfortunately, you don't really hear a lot from them, for the next 3 years. But this is great, perfect timing, in my opinion, to win this, and also away from home. So they've done a great job there, and fingers crossed they can just keep building.
Yeah, let's hope that maybe Glasgow next year they might get involved there, and we'll see what happens as we head towards the Com Games, Olympics, and all those cycles that come with it. But well done to the Opals. The other end of the spectrum, mate, we're just talking about, advanced players still getting another year to go around. A man who, well, the fact that he's played as many games as he has is absolutely phenomenal. Sam Docherty announced that he will be retiring effective after this round. This will be his last game up against the Hawks this weekend.
Yeah, it is. And it's no matter what team you support, everyone loves Sam Docherty in here. What he's done, I still remember that game. He played Richmond opening round, obviously coming back from cancer, knee reconstructions. He's gone back and he slotted that goal. And you could see Richmond supporters in the crowd stand up at that moment, as well as Carlton supporters. And it's one of those moments in footy that 10 years down the track, we're still going to be talking about. He's so loved, and to go through what he's gone through and still be producing good, great footy, really, he's kind of the blueprint for that hybrid half-back role. Not necessarily, built with speed off it, but just set the play up for Carlton and Brisbane before that off half-back. And I always loved the way Sam Docherty played and the way he carried himself as a person on top. So deserves everything that he gets. And I watched his speech to the Carlton guys, and it's hard not to even get a tear hearing him talk about he's sorry that he didn't get to achieve that, that big glory with Cripps. And you got Patrick Cripps, one of the hardest men in footy, just breaking down there, just showing what he means to that club and what he means to all of those players. So a great career and a great person, and just loved by everyone, fans and players alike.
Yeah, it certainly is. The only other, piece that sort of got me in terms of, you talk about when he returned and, those Richmond fans, it was almost up there with, the Jason McCartney return after all the Bali bombings. If we look over the last 25 years, they're probably the two biggest returns back to the game that just sort of unified everyone, and great to see. And, not that he needs it from us, but congrats on a phenomenal career of overcoming quite a lot of adversity for Sam. And can't wait to see. Undoubtedly, he'll be a very sought after person in both the commercial and sporting spaces after he finishes up his footy career.
Yeah, well deserved, and a great career. And fingers crossed that the Blues can get up this weekend in his farewell game too. Jacob Wiedering's 200th at the same time, so huge game for Carlton. I'm sure they'll send him off, and they'll get a big crowd there on Thursday night.
I'm sure they will. Can't wait to see how that pans out. That'll be just after the show drops. But lastly, mate, you've promised me off air, you've made a big promise to me. You've found a solution to North Melbourne's goal-kicking issues up forward. I can't wait to hear this.
Yes, so everyone's heard of Byron Pickett Sr., obviously Norm Smith medalist, North Melbourne, Port Adelaide star. Well, his son, Byron Pickett Jr., is playing in my neck of the woods, and one of the most naturally talented footballers you've ever seen for a young star. And he's 19, turning 20. And speaking of 20, he kicked 20 goals in A-grade footy last weekend, just casually, just big fella coming out the square. He's got a few centimetres on Daddy Chop. And if he can get himself fit, even if he can't, get him into the club, because I can guarantee he would light it up at AFL level. He can do the freakish things, but he's about 6'4", but he's faster than everyone else on the ground, and how clean he is below his knees is something that big men shouldn't be able to do. And it's great to see. And he's one of those people now in country football, and he's playing for Western United, and probably the best country team here in South Australia as well. So he's getting fed pretty well. But look, they won by 200 points last weekend. He scored 20, but not just that, he's actually kicked 44 goals in his past 3 matches. So this wasn't just a once-off, 20 goals. He's kicked 14 and 10 the 2 weeks prior. So definitely one to watch moving forward. And I'd be making a few phone calls if I'm North Melbourne or even Port Adelaide.
Yeah, a little bit of father-son rule. Look, I'll take someone that kicks 44 goals in a season for us at the moment. That'd be all right. That's more goals than North Melbourne's kicked in their last 3 games. It's probably more goals than we kicked in their last 6.
Yeah, it's phenomenal, and it's great for country footy. They're now having, that club's got someone who can bring an extra 30, 40 people through the gate, and it's great to see, and great in country footy when you get these stories. And his father's sons obviously grew up in the city, and now he's come back to the Eyre Peninsula, where Byron's originally from as well, and he's doing really well, and he's a great kid on top of it. So it'll be great to see what happens, or if he's just happy running around playing country footy, because we've got to remember, the top level isn't for everyone at the same time.
Well, it certainly isn't, and there should be no expectation just because you're talented that you have to, go to that next level. You feel for the blokes playing fullback against him every week, but that's okay. That's part of the deal. When's your club playing him, and why are you playing anywhere but fullback that week?
Yep. No, luckily it's the next league over, really, but. I would have been sick that day, or the hamstrings would have been playing up, or something. So I might even umpire that day. Maybe I'll put my hand up to umpire.
Yeah, to return the favour, get your old man out there with the boots on, and you can umpire.
If Dad umpires that day, I reckon the young fella might be seeing stars after 5 minutes, because he just know it's either him or me. So.
I was going to say, mate, the young fella might be just getting free kicks. He doesn't even need paid marks against the old man's umpiring up to what we've heard. But anyway, well, name to watch. Obviously a name that would have already lit up a lot of people's attention, but a name certainly to watch if he does advance that career. And, yeah, look, I'm sure, Brady, you're happy to negotiate the deal and manage the bloke. I know you've got some contacts in the player management space. Old Ryan will help you out.
Yeah, I might send him a message and just get a little bit of cut of the fee. I reckon that's only fair.
Spotters fee, yeah, I like it very much. Well, bros, let's take a bit of a spell, then we'll come back and we'll do a bit of a recap on some UFC boxing.
Sounds good, mate.
Well, Brady Burrows from the Third Man Up podcast is back with us, and it's time to talk the Biffs. Brody, you weren't here last week to preview them, and I think that was noticeable. Let's just put it that way. We did our best, but let's talk about some recaps. And how about we start? Let's start with the Octagon. Let's talk UFC 318, and we saw the end of a man who at different points in his career has been referred to as one of the baddest mother effers around in Dustin Poirier.
Yeah, look, Dustin the Diamond, what a great man, and what a great personality he's been for the sport overall. And he's had so many battles over the years. I mean, who could forget that trilogy with Conor McGregor, and probably the highlight and where he made his, the most of his money as anyone does. But look, he went out and he was really impressive. He's gone up against Max Holloway here, who, I mean, let's look at the scalps that Max has taken over the course of his, especially the last 4 or 5 years. And he took him to 5 rounds and was very, I didn't have it 49-46. I had it 48-47 Holloway. And look, he went out there and he started off and wanted to stand and bang in that last 10 seconds. And I heard him in the interview after, he said, I got hit pretty hard by the first 2, so I clinched him. I didn't want my last ever fight to see me land looking at the roof. But look, a huge credit, and I think the UFC handled it really well, his retirement, and Max did it too. Really gave him the time and the highlights package too. He's going to be a UFC Hall of Famer, and he absolutely deserves everything. Unfortunately, he was only the interim champ, wasn't the undisputed, but deserves every accolade that comes his way. Would never turn down a fight, no matter who it was, and he's going to be a big loss for the UFC.
Yeah, he certainly is. 30-10 record, and to that point, some of those fights that he took were probably, some might say ill-advised or pretty brazen to try and think that he was going to back himself in. So he's been happy to take on everyone and anyone along that journey. So well done to Poirier. Well done, obviously, to Max Holloway as well. The other one I want to talk about on that card, obviously, very early in the day, was Aussie Jimmy Crute getting a nice win in the first round.
Yeah, great to see Jimmy back. And I think the best thing about this is he got out of this pretty well completely scot-free. So no big injuries, which could set him up for that fight in Australia later on this year. So fingers crossed that happens. But he was thinking of retiring, of giving up the sport, and he's come back. And we've seen it before in this fight game. You get on a roll, and who knows where it might lead. So he's going to need to get himself off a couple more undercards, and who knows? He's so loved here in Australia, and at his best, he's a very dangerous fighter. And all he needs to do is just get fights under his belt at the moment, and get back in the gym, and take some time off, get back in the gym, and everyone loves Jimmy Crute. Let's be honest.
He's a great character, and I think a bit of consistency in his game, as you said there. Get a little rest in now, build into it. Hopefully, we can start seeing him, move on to some main prelims, and then work his way up into being part of some main events. And look, I was I think even some good judges, a lot better judges than me, and possibly even some better judges than you. Not that there's many of those pros, but there's a couple. Suggest that he has got quite a bit of talent to go the whole way if he can get that consistency in his game.
Yeah, and it's just, I think he really needs to improve his defense against those big grapplers as well. Like we've seen him before. When he come up with the likes, especially the ones at the top of their game who can dominate you for 3 rounds, 5 rounds, however long it may be. He just has to keep working on that defense. And I mean, these guys are absolute beasts. He can stand and bang with the best. We know that with Jimmy, but it's just about becoming the best all rounder. And you see that with all the best fighters. If they've got one chink in their game and they come up against another elite fighter, it gets found out so quick. And there's a big, big gap between the top 5 and that 10 to 15. And, if you're not at least well-rounded across your whole skill set, then you get found out pretty quick.
Yeah, those top guys, as you said, are so well-rounded. They've got, 7 out of 10 in their weaknesses and 10 out of 10 in their strengths. And it's just so hard to match up consistently against those. So that'll be the goal for Crute. We'll see how he develops. And hopefully, as you said, we'll see him on a fight card in Australia later this year. Someone who I'm not sure if we're going to see him on a fight card for quite some time, though, is when we talk boxing, and that is Tim Tszyu. His team had him hyped. He was the favourite for this fight. I think a few experts sort of questioned whether it was closer to a flip of the coin, and it turned out to be more than a flip of the coin against Fundora the second time around. It's hard to reconcile the two images of a man who went absolutely toe-to-toe, covered in blood, going the distance only 18 months ago, to the man who was just absolutely unconsolable, on a stool, unable to come out after the 7th round.
I've said it since the start, mate. You look at that fight after Fundora, they rushed him back against an absolute monster and he got knocked out cold, like clean cold. And ever since then, boxing is 80% mental, 20% physical. If your head's not in the right space, no matter how much training you do, how much confidence you've got, how well you think you're hitting bags, how well you're sparring, when you step inside those ropes and that bell rings, that's it. If you're not right in the head, you're done. And this was nowhere near the same Tim Tszyu ahead of that first fight against Fundora as what we saw on the weekend. And look, everyone's talking about Timmy Tszyu, but not enough credit is going to Sebastian Fundora. I mean, his jab, especially across those first 4 rounds, was just picking Timmy apart. And look, we've seen him get knocked down early. Did that contribute, 6 rounds later to Timmy not being able to stand up from his corner? But he just didn't look right. Even that whole fight, he just didn't look himself. It's that confidence thing. And the best thing they could have done after that initial loss, I mean, he shouldn't have even continued on 3 rounds. If he had a team that was actually willing to protect him, they should have just called it then. Saved him from himself, heal up, then come back, do the rematch, and then start again. And then this is what happens when you push someone too far, too fast against some, really good opponents without the proper breaks in between.
Yeah, it's an interesting piece, isn't it? Like we talk about it all the time in the footy codes about having to protect players from themselves, especially when they are in the heat of battle and not wanting to back down. And now you've got to this point where, and I found it pretty rough that some people were sort of, almost accusing Tim of quitting. Like you could see, like the lights were on, but nobody was home. When you looked at the vacant expression after that 7th round, it was really, really sad to see. And yeah, as you say, we may be in a very different point. It's not to say 100% we would be, but you would think that the numbers line up, that had they looked after him a little better, not had a loss, because, there would have been the option for the no contest if they had to stop that fight earlier the first time around. The confidence, the mental fortitude, all those things. Yes, we might have still ended up with a result where Fundora won this time on the rematch, but you'll never know that. And it just doesn't appear that they've done a great job of managing Tszyu and some of their other fighters to be broad on this. And I think it's something that boxing as a whole needs to get a really clear wrap on, because these guys, again, this whole CTE space is, you talk about it in footy, it's here as well. There needs to be like a real duty of care to sometimes protect these competitive beasts against, or from themselves, because as you know, we've played sport at a lot lower level than these guys, but once you're out there, you do not want to come off. You don't want to be the guy who's, not getting back to your feet and giving it a go, despite the fact that you may well know in your subconscious that you're nowhere near where you need to be, but you want to push on and you want to, it's that this is one of the most tough sports there are, this in UFC, right? Like this is combat. They don't want to be seen to be showing weakness.
Yeah, it was a completely different Tim Tszyu when I heard him on the mic too. It was a defeated Tim Tszyu. Yes, he obviously had symptoms from concussion, but it just looked like he was done, didn't it? Like, I'm not sure if you heard it, but you hear him speak and he was so down. And even in the press conference after, this wasn't the Tim Zhu that even when he lost, he was so full of praise for his opponent. He just looked completely down on himself, completely just low on any kind of confidence whatsoever. And it's something that's hard to see as a fan of Australian boxing, as a fan of Tim Zhu. And I mean, I think coming into this fight, it was what's next for Tim. Now, I think we know. Tim's got to at least take 8 months out of the game. And then, I mean, he could be back, fighting fighting spaghetti tins in Newcastle.
Yeah, it's unfortunate, mate. And that's the thing, right? You look back at this and, you even look at how Fundura was talking about the first fight versus the second fight after the fight. And, he was in awe of Tim Zhu's presence. He admitted that the first time around, the presence that he had, the way he controlled the ring. But those 4 knockdowns in that last fight, they just seem to have broken his spirit. Like, he's not the same guy. As you said, he didn't control the same. And again, I don't think that's a conscious thing because, all the talk leading in, Zhu seemed and genuinely appeared confident. But, yeah, it's just, some of those wins that they had, previously, I think they covered some sins for him. And then, he came into that fight against Murtazaliev and that didn't work out for him. He got knocked down 4 times and now, he's at risk of becoming a punching bag and, the punchline, pardon the pun, to, some, not great fighters' stories, that he's going to boost them up and instead be a sad, tale of woe and, what could have been.
Yeah, I'm worried. I think you said it well. We don't want Tim to become a gatekeeper. He's a guy you beat to know that, you can compete with these guys. And I think if he keeps going like this, that could be the track that he's going down. He'll get brought in for these Vegas fights for a gatekeeper against a big up-and-comer. And Tim just needs to take a break and hopefully a break from No Limit. But I won't go any further on that. But No Limit for me, I think they've done him a pretty big injustice as well, pushing him into these fights. Yes, he's, we know the talent of Tim, but at the same time, look after him. If he is your golden goose, you do everything to look after your golden goose. You don't try and squeeze that goose dry too early.
Yeah, it's an interesting one, and I'm sure promoters will use the example of the man who fought just after him, Manny Pacquiao, and, 73 fights in 46 years of age. There's exceptions to rules, right? Like we talked about it before. Not every 40-year-old that's played basketball can be Chris Paul or LeBron James. The reality is some fighters, we need to manage them, protect them from themselves and make sure that we're looking after them because this is a guy who's newly married. He's going to have a family, he needs to take some time away. And if that means that we don't see Tim Zhu box again or for the foreseeable future, it's going to suck as a boxing fan, but his health is far more important than my enjoyment or, anyone else's of one boxing bout here or there.
Yeah, exactly right. And let's be honest, he's made that much money over the past 4 or 5 years. He's set for life. He doesn't need to be going out and doing this. And fingers crossed Tim is okay. And because it was really sad to see, and it was a bit of a shell of a man, unfortunately. And all we can hope is he gets back on that horse and just gets himself right. Whether that leads to boxing down the track, whether that doesn't, he just gets himself right down the way and gets back and helps Nikita out. Obviously, Nikita's still flying at his stage in his career and just get around supporting his brother if he does want to be around boxing. If he doesn't, just take a break. There's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to see. He's clearly at a crossroads. Hopefully his team and his family can help support him to get to the right avenue of that and take the right road, not the wrong road. But we'll wait and see. We wish him all the best with his recovery from, as you said, what is clearly some pretty heavy concussion. And we'll wait and see what the next big fights deliver. As always, though, Broads, Third Man Up podcast is where you can catch plenty more sport, a lot of footy as well. We didn't touch too much on the AFL this week, but we appreciate you coming on the show and giving us your 2 cents on all things around the grounds, boxing and UFC this week.
No, thanks for having me, mate. Look forward to talking this time next week.
Well, it's time to do something a little bit different. We're going to talk some ice hockey for the first time on the Chris McPherson Show, and we are absolutely stoked to be joined by 2 of the Newcastle Northstars stars from the AIHL. Got Riley Klugermann and Taj Lowrey. Lads, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having us on. Always good to be here.
Well, Taj, we might start with you, mate. Not only are you playing for the Northstars at the moment, you've just been over in the Under-18s Championships, the Sid Tange National Championships, where you were part of the victorious New South Wales side, mate. That must have been a pretty cool experience to take out the Nationals over the last sort of week or so.
Oh, yeah, no, it was good. It was a good weekend. It was a bit long, but, coming out with a gold was pretty good, so got to be happy.
Yeah, and, obviously looking through some of the scores and, I was keeping across quite a bit of it with knowing your old man who's been around the Newcastle sporting scene quite a bit, Troy. some of the highlights and stuff, there was some moments where there was a few tight games, but a big victory in the final in the end. You kind of blew South Australia away.
Yeah, no, after having a close game with them in round robin, we only beat them by a goal or two, and then winning like that, yeah, that was pretty good. It was good to get out by a few goals ahead and then just kept rolling. So,
yeah, always good to see New South Wales lifting another national trophy, mate. That is for sure. But I guess in terms of you, and again, I've been a little bit, I guess I've seen sort of some of the stuff from what your dad shares on socials and stuff. And we know that ice hockey, and we'll talk about Riley's journey in a moment, but we know that ice hockey is probably not as mainstream a sport as plenty others in Australia. We're really fortunate in Newcastle, that's for sure, to have a team on the national stage. But your journey's, mate, seen you sort of have to pack up at a reasonably young age and head overseas, as it has for a number of people. We've seen, we've seen that with the first of the Aussies making the NHL in recent times, and his journey as well. But it's not an easy path to, I guess, tread as an Aussie ice hockey prospect.
No, it's not. But I guess it all comes with just what you do with what you love. So yeah, just following the sport wherever I can go. It's pretty fun.
Yeah, in terms of that, was it where did you end up heading over to? Was it the Czech Republic that you went to?
No, my first year overseas was in Sweden.
Right.
Over there for a season, and then come back here, and then next season I was over in Canada, Kingston.
And how did you find it, I guess, going to Sweden? I'm guessing that was a real challenge, the language barrier, all those sorts of things. Canada probably a little bit smoother transition.
Yeah, I mean, surprisingly in Sweden it wasn't that bad at all, because most people speak Swedish and then they're all happy and kind. So if they couldn't, they would help you find someone who could. So yeah, it was a good experience over there. But yeah, Canada was definitely easier. Didn't have to worry that much.
No, definitely. And in terms of that, I touched on just before with the NHL, and we've got Nathan Walker over there at the moment. I'm assuming he's kind of the trailblazer that young Aussies like yourself and those other guys that are playing at the Sydney Teenage Championships are looking at in terms of the path to follow.
Yeah, no, it was actually really good because it's the off season for the NHL at the moment. So Nathan Walker, he was there at the tournament, walking around saying hello. So it's pretty cool to see him. Shook his hand. Obviously, didn't wash it afterwards. So.
That's awesome, mate. And, great to see that we have got an Australian trailblazer in that regard. And it's nice to see there is a little bit more attention on the ice hockey as it comes. And I'm sure you've seen that start to develop. I mean, having an NHL game here, what was that, a couple of years ago now, nearly 2 years ago, certainly doesn't hurt the spotlight. But and Riley, you can probably touch on this, mate. The attention on ice hockey here versus what it's like at home would be, I'm guessing, significantly different.
Yeah, no. I mean, ice hockey is kind of the main sport in Canada, right? Like in the States, it's football, basketball, but in Canada, it's hockey, kind of like rugby over here, but probably I'd say even more popular. Yeah,
certainly. And I guess from that point of view, obviously, by the accent and by what you just said, Canada's, home for you. But this is, I think, what are you into your third season now with the Northstars?
Yeah, this is I guess for you guys, my third winter being over here.
Yeah. And how have you found the adjustment? How do you find the standard? What are you doing in your winter, I guess? On the other side, you're playing sort of college hockey, is it?
Yeah. So the last 2 years, like I go back home and I play like at university, our school has a team. So I go to school, play on the team there, and I finish school around like end of April, early May. And then after that, I come out here and play for the Northstars, which is like, it's been pretty fun the last 3 years. And I also have family out here, so I get to come visit them too. And, it's fun. I've came here my first year and haven't left since. So.
Yeah, well, I know from talking to a few people who do follow the Northstars and the AIHL quite well that, it's been yourself and a couple of others that have been longer term, I guess, imports have been well welcomed in, and certainly they appreciate having you. In terms of the competition too, and Taj being a Nova Cash, and you're probably as across this as anyone, the Northstars have traditionally and always over recent years punched above their weight in terms of, the market size we've got versus how we perform.
Yeah, I mean, I'd say the Northstars are usually one of the better teams in the league every year. I mean, that's kind of the expectation for us. Like, it's always, we want to win a championship, and if not, it's kind of a disappointment, right? And everyone on the hockey team feels that way.
Yeah, and from your point of view, Taj, growing up here, how's it been to, now make that I guess progression through into, playing for the senior side, in your local area?
Yeah, no, it's good. It's good having a few games under my belt there. And it's actually funny enough, our captain, Liam Manwaring, we found a photo the other day where it was like I got a photo with him when he was in like the same position as me. I think he was 16 or 17 in that photo, and so he recreated it. I'll send it through to you after, and it's pretty funny.
That's awesome. That's awesome full circle stuff, mate. Probably makes him feel a little bit old, though, I'm guessing.
Yeah, I think he's still. Is he still? I think he's still in his 20s or early 30s. So he's not too old yet, but.
Yeah, right. And in terms of the standard for you, Riley, like playing in university and college hockey back home versus here, how do you find the difference in standard? How do you find the standard of the AIHL overall versus some of the leagues you've played in?
I actually think it's quite good because, like, again, you got imports that come to this league. Like this year, like the Melbourne Ice, they have David Booth, who played 10 years in the NHL. And standing next to him on the ice, you're like, you can just tell he's played really high level hockey before. And even on our team, we have an import, Evgeny Skachkov, that got drafted to the NHL and played high level hockey in Russia. So you get to play with and against these guys. And it's, if you don't bring your best against them, they're going to make you, not look like you should be out there. So when I'm in Canada, I don't necessarily play against guys that have played in the NHL before, but every single time you go on the ice, you still got a good player you got to play against. So it's a little bit different, but it's both like super competitive and you got to bring your best every game, right?
Yeah, well, it's great to hear that. And I guess when we look at the ladder and where it fits now, Taj, in terms of it, you guys talked about it before, the Northstars have traditionally been a pace setter, but you're kind of sitting mid-table at the moment as we get to turning towards the run home, but still within touching distance to sort of chase, another title, I suppose.
Yeah, I know it's good to get a few games, but I don't expect much time out there, but it's good to do what I can. It's happy to put towards the team effort. So,
and Riley, in terms of that run home and where you sit now, sort of being in the middle of the table, like what's the expectations? Is it still chasing that top spot and making sure you're featuring in finals hockey?
Yeah, I mean, like I think we're starting to find our form right now. Like I think we've won our last 4 games, and start of the season, we started off a little slow, but we didn't have our full roster yet, like still imports coming in and players. But I think now we have our full team and everyone's expecting us to like go on a little bit of a run here and hopefully end with the championship.
Yeah, undoubtedly. And I guess that probably starts this weekend. I think you guys have got the doubleheader down in Melbourne, up against the 2 Melbourne sides. You just touched on, coming up against someone who's got that NHL experience. They're a couple of big matches there with the Mustangs and the Ice.
Yeah. I mean, those 2 games are going to be huge. We got the Mustangs right behind us. So those are crucial points. And I mean, the Ice are way up there, but getting a win against them would definitely help, your confidence in going in and when you play against other teams.
Yeah, certainly. Taj, as someone who's grown up here, with, as Riley touched on before, all those other sporting codes that we focus on so heavily, what would you say, to the casual fans in terms of, and you're a guy who's been around, through your dad as well, rugby union, rugby league, lots of these other sports. What would you say to people in terms of the reasons to come along and watch? And, we've got most of the major centres, Sydney at the moment, we know, because the ice rink down there is undergoing, some revamps. There's no Sydney teams at the moment, but, we've got teams Melbourne, Adelaide, Perth, the Central Coast, Newcastle. What would you say to these people that are in these areas about coming down and watching the game and the reasons they should get out and check out the AIHL?
I mean, I guess it's got all aspects of like sport that we love. It's rough, it's fast, it's it's fun to watch. You see points getting scored. There's players all over the ice, and honestly, it's just a fun sport all around. And I'd recommend everyone to come watch because the only thing holding us back would be honestly capacity. Like the Northstars sell out every game, so having a bigger rink around would be great.
Yeah, we were talking about it before with our producer, JR Carter, and JR's a big ice hockey fan. He loves his NHL, and he was sort of saying, some of those things, and being in Newcastle, there's a few of the venues that are limited. It'd be great to see, obviously, expansion of that. But what would you guys think about something we've seen in lots of our sporting codes here in Australia, like they have the, the magic rounds and the gather rounds and stuff, but maybe something that crossed over the Winter Classic they have in the NHL into, a big venue where everyone played at one venue in the weekend. How would that go down, do you think?
No, it'd be good. And it's just like, I think there's a lot of people here that enjoy hockey because from every single person I've talked to, as soon as they come to one game, they get hooked instantly. They want to come to all of them, right? So I think there is a draw. It's just finding a space where, you can have those people come. Like I know in Canberra this year, they they turned the AIS arena into a hockey rink, and they've been selling out every single game with 3,000 fans, and everyone there seems to be enjoying the hockey game. So it'd be cool if something like that could happen in Newcastle. And I think with our passionate fan base, it definitely could happen.
Taj, it's one of the few sports left where there's a bit of biff, as you said. Is there some rules around that? In terms of like casual sports fans, what are the rules? What's the the etiquette when it comes to throwing hands in the hockey?
Oh, I mean, it's just like when it comes to a fight, it's like the refs try to stop it, I guess, but once they've both dropped the gloves, and they safer to play it out and watch it happen, I guess.
Yeah, I guess it's one of those things when you look at some of the US, like the NHL and those sorts of things, Riley, where teams have sort of enforcers. From what I've seen in the AIHL, it's probably not as much that there's really, out and out enforcers. And, in terms of am I missing something there? Are there guys who, that's their main gig?
It's kind of like 10, 15, 20 years ago, every team had one for sure, maybe two. Now the game has gotten so fast and so skilled that those guys have kind of like fizzled out, but there's still guys on each team that will do it, because it's kind of like your own inner policing, right? If something dirty happens and the ref doesn't get it, well, there's going to be a guy coming up to you and making sure you don't do that again, right? So every guy is willing, but there's always a time and place for it, right?
Yeah, certainly. I guess you've got to find those moments, but as you guys touched on, there's still plenty of physicality, still guys getting checked into boards and stuff. There's no love lost when you get into these games, which is that probably piece you were touching on, Taj, in terms of, it's got all those elements of all the sport we love sort of brought together. Plus it's indoors, so you don't have to worry about getting wet sitting out in the grandstand like you do when you go to a Knights game or a Jets game or some of these other sports in Newcastle.
No, but you probably just have to double sock. You may get a bit cold, but no, it's pretty good. But yeah, lots of people love to watch it, and I've heard people say it's like it took them like a couple months to get tickets because they're always too late before they sold. But yeah, it'd be great to see it in a bigger arena and more love for it.
Yeah, certainly. I think it's a little while now. You guys are on the road a little bit over the next few weeks, so that's going to be the focus, and I guess trying to get some momentum as you're traveling.
Yeah, I think we have only one home game left on the year, and the rest are on the road. But it's always fun going on the road, going to Melbourne, Central Coast, Brisbane, playing against all those teams and seeing their fan bases, and and winning in their rink, right? Silencing the crowd.
Yeah, exactly. I think you touched on the AIS before you head down to Canberra for a game in a couple of weeks as well. That'd be cool in front of that bigger crowd as well.
Yeah, I've only played in front of a crowd like that a couple of times, and it's been one of the best experiences of my life in Canada. So from what I've heard there, everyone seems like a good experience, and I think a lot of guys who haven't played in front of that will definitely enjoy it.
Taj, I'm sure you're looking forward to being able to play in front of those sorts of numbers. I'm guessing there hasn't been a lot of that yet in your very young career.
Yeah, no, I've just been playing the home games at the moment, but hopefully I get down there for that game. That'll be great.
Well, we'll wait and see how it goes, boys. Thank you very much for your time. We encourage everyone to check it out. Maybe start getting in on the Northstars social media so they can start lining up for the home games for next season, because it sounds like it's going to be pretty tough to get it in for that last home game. But really thank you both, Riley Klugermann, Taj Lowrey. Good luck to the Northstars for the run home. And again, thanks for coming on the Chris McPherson Show.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you. It was good chatting. So
yeah, thank you for having us on.
Well, big thanks to Riley Klugermann and Taj Lowrey from the Newcastle Northstars. Great to have them on as some special guests this week, a double team, a dynamic duo. And if you want to catch more of the Australian Ice Hockey League, head to theaihl.com.au to check out where you can get tickets for your local team and get down and check it out. It is an absolute spectacle and great to watch. A big thanks, of course, to Brody Burrows as well for all of his work coming in and talking all things UFC and boxing and helping out around the grounds. And to the man behind the scenes, he was not present on your screens today, but he was certainly present, keeping it all together. J.R. Carter, our producer on the ones and twos. We appreciate him. As always, make sure you stay up to date by subscribing to our YouTube and Spotify, and you can catch us on all of your favourite social media platforms at The Chris Mack Show. But until next week, where our next weekly show will drop again next Thursday, you can keep up to date with our daily doses dropping in between. But we look forward to talking all things sport again with you on our next opportunity.